Okay, we'll call this special council meeting to order for June the 2nd. It's 3 p.m. And I'll ask Councillor Hystad to please read the land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3 with the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you. I'd also like to just take a moment to acknowledge that June is National Indigenous History Month. It is also Pride Month, and this week is Seniors Week throughout Alberta. So we'll move on to number 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions? No. Can I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor.
I will make, thank you. I'll make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
All in favor? Okay, thank you. And we'll move into 3.1 with a fire fleet update with Director Leith.
So as Councillor are aware, Innisfail Fire Department provides contract services to Red Deer County and have mutual aid agreements with surrounding municipalities. Our contracted area is just over 750 square kilometres and stretches from Penhold to the north to Bowden Institute to the south, Highway 756 on the southern tip of Gunnifer Lake to the west, and to 816 to the east. To support the service in this area, Red Deer County provides us with fire apparatus, and currently what that looks like is 2 water tenders capable of carrying over 3,500 gallons each, an engine, wildland truck, with an off-highway vehicle, and a rescue truck. The expected service life of frontline appliances is 15 years, and as part of the replacement programme, Innisfail will see a replacement engine and wildland truck by the end of summer 2025. The apparatus comes with enhancements, a top deck monitor, I'll start again then. So the apparatus will come with some enhancements, a top deck monitor, battery operated vent fan, and additional rescue tools, while the wildland unit will have an increased water capacity, and that will meet the requirements of a Type 6 unit, which the current one doesn't.
Okay, thank you, Director Leith. Are you done the report?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Director Leith? Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, and through to Director Leith. It's not about necessarily around these particular upgrades, but I'm interested because it's been very public on the news with Red Deer, the city of Red Deer struggling to staff up their fire. Red Deer County typically does a bunch of backup with the city of Red Deer. Are we being impacted by having to cover while they cover, that kind of situation?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Wing, at this point, no, there's no real impact to us, and I don't foresee any.
Okay, if nothing else, I'll please have someone make the motion, recommended motion in front of us. Councillor Hystad.
Yeah, so the council accept the report as information.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried, thank you. Thanks. And we'll move on to 3.2 with Napoleon Lake South Land Development. Director Kennedy.
I'll do it. Report in front of you is to present to council the consideration for award for the Napoleon Lake South Land Development Project. The tender for completion of the deep services, water, sanitary, and storm, servicing, grading, road base, curb and sidewalk, further development was issued back in April. 5 tender submissions were received. Prices do not include GST. Low bid was Urban Dirt Works at 2.728 million. High bid was at that 4.88, so wide variety of costing. Tender evaluation was completed. No unbalanced items were identified. So it is recommended that we proceed with Urban Dirt Works to award the contract. Total project cost with engineering and contingency is 3.13 million. In regards to site work, so we are anticipating Urban Dirt Works to mob into the site later this week or early this week, depending on their availability. Shallow utilities will be brought forward to council in the coming weeks or months once we hear back from the shallow utilities companies with regards to their design comments. Landscaping, trail construction, and paving is anticipated to be completed in 2026. Total project cost, budget is in the $4.5 million still range, with our current estimates still showing within that range, estimating at 4.8, but that does include contingencies as well. So, financial impacts, revenue and expenses projections indicate that the project is or can be self-funded still, with cash flow coming from the land acquisition reserve. This project's component is within the estimated budgets. So we are looking for a recommendation to award the project to Urban Dirt Works.
Okay, thank you, Director Kennedy. Could I please have someone make the recommended motion? Councillor Hystad,
Okay.
are your lights on?
Yeah, well, lights on, nobody's home today.
Okay, sorry.
The council approved the contract award of the Napoleon South Infrastructure to Urban Dirt Works Incorporated for $2,728,468 or $464.91 to be funded from the land acquisition reserve.
Okay, thank you. That was terrible. No, it was fine. It was fine. Are there any questions? Just curious, Director Kennedy, the notices are going out and this week, I assume?
Notices have been drafted and
Okay.
ready to be handed out tomorrow.
Okay, great. Okay. Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, Your Worship, hopefully I won't stumble through this one. I honestly think this is a good news story as to the pricing of it, as well as just communicating that to our citizens as to, you know, this is a really good bid for our community and pricing. Thank you.
I'm also curious, Director Kennedy, going forward, there's trail construction, like, would you anticipate applying for any grants for that? Like, are there grants for trail construction?
I'm not aware of anything specific to trail,
Okay.
but we will continue to monitor grant opportunities as the project proceeds. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll continue to monitor.
Wasn't sure if it tied into some other trail stuff that you've done in the past, so. Yeah, okay, thanks. All righty, so we have a motion, all in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move into 3.3, a request for decision on the Rotary Golf Tournament.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So we're looking for council decision with respect to the 39th Annual Innisfail Rotary Golf Classic. So council has supported this event in the past in accordance with our new 2024 sponsorships and requests for funding. These are brought to council on a case-by-case basis for consideration. So going back to 2022, the town has supported the Rotary Club in the amount of $955 in 2022 and then $400 in both 2023 and 2024. The current operating budget identifies $5,000 for council to consider for sponsorship. So far in 2025, council has approved sponsorship requests for the rodeo in the amount of $2,500 and the Harvest Fest in the amount of $1,100. So $3,600 of that $5,000 has been allocated. So leaving you with 14. And then really just looking for consideration and a dollar value if council so chooses. It does look like perhaps in the past $400 was a whole sponsorship, and that's maybe $500 now. I do believe the event is next week, so that was why we got this in, well, the end of next week. Or we need to have committed by next week. That's the deadline.
Okay. Thank you, Director Jenkins. Could I have someone make a motion? Councillor Bates?
I would move that we do the whole sponsorship for this year. And I do believe that's correct, that that's what we've done for the last 2 years.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. We have a motion. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and then we'll move on to 3.4, the request for information on the advertising policy and arena agreements with Director Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So we're looking for some council input and discussion around advertising policy, and specifically with our advertising opportunities and arrangements at the Twin Arenas. So currently, we do have our advertising and sponsorship policy, which provides overarching guidance on how advertising can be accommodated in town facilities, supported by the rates and fees bylaw, which actually identifies the individual locations and the costs for those amounts. The arena is by far our most utilized space in terms of opportunities for advertising, with the rink boards and ice resurfacer, as well as various other wall spaces within the facility. In addition, the Innisfail Eagles have an agreement that allows them to sell wallboard advertising, of which the town gets $100 per year for each wallboard that they display. So we're looking for some input from council, as we have had some other groups looking for opportunities to advertise, as well as some practices that have sort of evolved. So yes, so on the screen we have the picture. So right now the Mavericks are active in the arena, and they've been placing banners up on the glass. This is something I believe the Eagles also do. They take them up and down during games. So really looking for some feedback on what we think is acceptable for advertising within the arena, and how we want to navigate either the sharing of that with user groups or the town directly. So.
All right. Thank you, Director Jenkins. Councillor Wing?
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Yeah, just a comment. Regardless of who the user group is, whether it's figure skating or lacrosse or soccer, it's becoming more and more difficult for organizations to be able to fulfill sponsorship expectations when they're in the community looking for support. And so so is it difficult for the town. So I appreciate and was involved in a conversation earlier in the year with a sponsor who was, kind of considering, my options are plentiful. There's lots of opportunities, do I do a rink board and go directly to the town, or do I do something different? I think it's important that we try to achieve balance, and I think that our board advertising for the town's purposes is good, and I appreciate that we've got we have an agreement in place with the Eagles for what goes on the wall. But those temporary banners, I think, are a really cost-effective and cost-efficient way for our groups to be able to make commitments to their sponsors, bring resources that are much needed into their organizations. They're temporary. They go up easily. They come down easily. They're transparent, I guess is the word. Like you can see through them. So they don't necessarily block out full lines of vision for other people that are in the arena. So I wouldn't like to see us necessarily penalize our user groups for being able to be creative in the way they activate their sponsors in our facilities and in our community, because they can't do the work they can't play their games and do the work they do without them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Heistan?
Yeah, I think what Councillor Wing is bang on with that, and the user groups that use the facility. As to, I think there's an opportunity for those groups like figure skating, Mavericks, Eagles, minor hockey, lacrosse. If they help the town sell some of those boards, maybe there's a bit of a carrot there as well. For them going out of their way and making sure that there's contracts that are signed off and that we are filling up the rink boards. I know it's tough when you get the one side which is the best place to advertise. I think there's another opportunity in our community as well as outside of the arena. There's the outdoor arena in our community. And I don't know if that's being explored by administration. There's rink boards there, and they're much like the rink boards in the arena. And I think that may be another opportunity for these user groups or companies that may want to advertise on the rink, on the outdoor rink as well. It may be another opportunity for revenue for the community itself. But as to temporary ones, I agree with Councillor Wing. And I appreciate that administration brought this forward for discussion today. Thank you.
Okay, what I'd like to see, Director Jenkins, is, I guess, a policy that covers all of our facilities, whether it's the aquatic center or the arena. I don't know exactly what other user groups you're referring to, but I believe this last weekend there was something like 500 users in that arena for lacrosse. So I think of the impact minor sports has on this community, whether it's, think of the baseball diamonds, the aquatic center, this facility, et cetera. And some of this is not covered in policy, right? We have the Eagle agreement. We don't have any policy to cover the glass. And I think it needs to be equitable across user groups so that others can participate as well. And so I would like to see data on how many users, and I don't know whether we have that data, but I don't know whether we track how many users are attached to a particular baseball tournament on a weekend or the lacrosse tournament, and I would like to see that data, and then, have you develop a policy around that, and even the aquatic center, now that it's going under a modernization. Is there opportunities there for users of that facility, or even the Dolphins, to potentially do some fundraising? And of course, I mean, it's our facility, so we probably should have some funding from it as well.
And I think that's the sort of that clarity piece in terms of, are we looking for opportunities for the user groups to be able to market this, or are we looking to expand sort of town-offered spaces? Right now, so the Eagles are the only agreement where we sort of have that third party. Is that something that we would want to entertain for other groups, or are we more, everyone else can sort of do this temporary when you're utilizing the space, you can put your signs up, but you have to take them down at the end? Because that's the questions we're getting from groups like the Mavericks in terms of, can we sell wall boards? Can we sell banner glass ads that can be left up sort of for their season or longer?
And I don't know the answer. I think there needs to be, policy, and there needs to be some data around participants. I mean, it's not just, the odd tournament here and there, but I think somehow it is a town facility, so we need to have some type of say, or I don't want to use the word control, but there needs to be something where, one or two or three user groups aren't taking all the space and there's nothing left for another user group. And I don't know how you make it fair, and whether the town needs to control that or what, but I'm sure that you will find some information out, maybe about how other communities do it, and bring it back to us. And
Yeah, we can certainly look. I think we are somewhat unique in the allowing the other group to sell the advertising sort of in conjunction with us. You know, I'll use Diamond 7 as another example where that fundraiser group, they have sold advertising specifically for that facility. That's their, it's part of the construction of that. Longer term, whether the town then takes over selling those spaces has yet to be determined.
Well, I think too, we've had conversation around, you know, sponsorships and naming rights and advertising and having a revenue source for the town and helping with some of our operational expenses on these facilities too. But like I said, it needs to be fair, and we want to help groups certainly be successful as well, so. Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, Your Worship, I agree with you. It should be fair across the board for all the groups, user groups. I really see there's a big opportunity because I know your staff, like the administration, do not have time to go out and look for sponsorship, or, as well as your ICE, you know, your manager that looks after the arena or any of the other facilities. I think there's a huge opportunity for a win-win with each of the user groups, because a lot of them have contacts with different companies and businesses across central Alberta. And I see it's going to be it could be a huge win for those user groups as well as the town itself. My recommendation, and it may be best for administration working with those groups and actually taking a walk and looking at the outdoor arena and looking at those facilities as where the best placement may be, rather than just having us dictate it, because they may have some ideas themselves on how they want to advertise and create some extra revenue. Those are my thoughts. Thanks.
So to council, to support administration's conversation with you is, so I'm hearing a few different things, is the philosophy is to utilize space for revenue generation or associated with the town, I believe that's one. The other one is, are we supporting space to allow users to sell sponsorship for their own use? I think that both are currently in place. Also hearing the ability to have users sell space in conjunction with the town. I think there's a lot in there. Thought is, the pressure to have for an equitable policy is more and more important due to the pressures the town has on operating the facilities, but also the users to operate their programs. I'm not hearing a lot of difference from what we currently do, Director. I'm not sure what you're picking up, but I think probably clarity through a more robust policy is what I'm hearing. Director, do you hear anything beyond that?
Yeah, I guess for us, is there an appetite to expand, I guess, that opportunity for user groups, whoever those user groups would be, to sort of also be selling advertising? Because that's with the existing wallboard ad, the rates for those wallboard ads are set by the user group. We get $100 per board for that space. Is that something that we want to leave with that group, and then we come up with something that sort of applies to everyone else?
Councillor Dunham?
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. I see all these, I see it as a multi-layered approach, is that if, for the wallboards, for example, is I think there should potentially be a set rate, and the user groups potentially get a certain amount, because if one business maybe sponsors a couple different, and they're getting $300 from one group and $500 from another group, I don't see that being equitable. So potentially, could we set a rate or work with the different user groups to set a rate for wallboards? The town gets a certain percentage, the group gets a certain percentage, they're permanent. And then we still have the opportunity for them to have, on the day of or during tournaments, to have the temporary ones that go up on the glass on the opposite side. And then the rink boards, and those are completely town controlled. And then I think, yeah, we should potentially just keep that in our wheelhouse.
Councillor Wing, then Bates.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, and just my last thought is, as we look at at that policy level and reviewing, I appreciate, looking at all of our facilities, of course, where we are with the aquatic center now, and even moving, it's a good time to start thinking about what comes next with the arenas as well, considering that higher level, so naming of buildings, naming of rooms, that kind of thing, but and then allowing users to activate independently for their sponsors. Permanent versus non-permanent. So again, boards and walls, that's 12 months of the year activation, and tied into, like with the Eagles and their wall boards, that's tied into their lease. They have a separate agreement, I guess, is what I'm saying there. But then just the other consideration is who's actually selling them. So if the Eagles or the Mavericks are out looking for their sponsors, they're doing the work, they're leasing their space already, paying a fee, should they have to pay more because they've been able to activate a sponsor and they want to put up a temporary banner that's there for purposes of game day only kind of thing, so.
No, I don't think there was any intent to charge for the temporary game day stuff. It's just the desire for some of those groups to not have to take them down every
Yeah,
time,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, I'm good with that level. Thank you.
Councillor Bates.
About 4 things rattling around. Yeah, so the temporaries on the glass, I guess my personal opinion is, yeah, temporary on the glass if they come down. Seems like a good way to go, because the only interference that they have is their own spectators. And like, I can't see through them, but maybe somebody else can. But it's their own spectators that would be affected. When I hear us talking about wall boards and other user groups, is somebody suggesting, like, do the Eagles have the exclusivity of however much wall that we see in that lower picture? This is a rhetorical question. I don't know whether they have a specific area that they're allowed to sell or beyond. And we've talked for some time about naming buildings and bigger things, and I think it is time that we start pushing that agenda ahead a little bit, because it just seems like other towns do it, and there's got to be some revenue there that we're missing. And as I looked at this at home, it caused me to wonder, and I don't know what we do in the curling rink, because I see a ton of boards up there, and I have no idea how that's managed. So there's my 4 things, having said.
I'll start at the end. So the curling rink, as they lease the entire facility, they sell their advertising, and that's their own revenue. We're not involved in the operation or anything with respect to their advertising. The Eagles, based on their the MOU we have, they can sell up to 25 wallboard ads. So essentially, I don't even know if we could fit 25 based on the spots on that wall. So that agreement basically covers that whole west wall of the blue arena as it sits right now. And then as for facility naming, so for the arena is the only facility that we sort of have the built-out package that you see in there, in the agenda package, that doesn't provide a dollar value for the entire facility, but does get to the level of the red and blue ice surface, the naming of those two. Again, there hasn't necessarily been concerted effort in the marketing and sale of that. It's sort of as people express interest. If you've been in the arena in the last couple of weeks, you'll notice the new fountain tire at the top of the mezzanine. So those, we are seeing more interest in advertising on the town facility side, but I'm not sure if I got all of them.
Director Jenkins to get this whole of this conversation, and I don't know, did you want a motion to direct you to bring back user data on our facilities? And as well as, can we build out packages for other facilities? And, you know, at that point, would we potentially hire a firm or something to sell that advertising as opposed to putting it on you? I even look at, you know, the Eagle agreement, it's 10 years old. We're still getting $100 10 years later. Is that something that should be part of a policy and updated? And
I guess
I
that's
don't
part
know.
of what
Yeah.
we're here today,
Yeah.
is do we want to sort of open these policies and agreements, or are we kind of comfortable where we're at?
I'd like to know what other communities are doing with their advertising. And I don't mind doing it this way, like having users, you know, being able to sell advertising and raise funds that way. And you know, that's helping them as well. But I just think it should be all inside a policy that's equitable across the board.
If I could suggest, Mayor, to your comments into council, is to allow administration to start there as to
Sure.
conduct research on other
Okay.
policies. Look for director's guidance too, but just to start on what other municipalities that are successful in this space and bring that information back to you. We don't want to go too far with this without your guidance. It may lead into, more into data and to other facilities, which is, other facilities, we're building a pretty significant actionable item, which is okay. But maybe to start, I'd review a policy, if that's what director's
Trying to
at
fill up-
appropriate.
Just trying to fill up council action control.
Yeah, exactly. Director's is that fitting for you?
Do you need a motion, or you're okay? You would like a motion? Okay. Councillor Wing.
Mayor Barclay, I would make that motion.
What motion?
Darn
Just
it.
kidding.
What she said. Just requesting administration to do some, collect some data and do some comparative work and come back to us with some potential draft policies or amendments to policies.
And Director Jenkins, do we have data on number of users, like at events, tournaments, and that kind of thing, or?
So we would certainly have users in terms of participants, not necessarily in terms of spectators
Yeah,
or,
no,
or
for sure.
attendees, that part of it, so.
So can that be part of that?
Yeah, we can certainly
Bring that
include
back.
usage, even booking hours per user group, that sort of thing, or.
Be interesting to know how many ball tournaments are in the summertime. Like
I think the
there's a lot.
seasonality of the arena is something that's becoming, you know, with the growth of
Absolutely.
lacrosse and even with Mavericks there, that this April, May, June, July season is a lot more active in the building than it was in the past, so.
Yeah, for sure. That's good to see. All right, so we have a motion. All in favor? Okay, carried. All right. I think that's the end of our public agenda, so we will now have a motion to go in camera, please.
Barclay, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor?